to a Midnight Media Special Edition.
We're doing a special episode tonight where we are going to discuss practical effects in cinema.
This will maybe be a new segment where we zero in on a particular aspect of film and tell you why other people are doing it poorly.
Yep.
And why they suck.
Yep.
And why we don't.
Yeah. Practical effects, they're something I personally love about filmmaking. Something that is still used in filmmaking, but is not to the extent that it was.
There's certainly an aspect of the human element lost when it's not made with your hands and it's made with a mouse and a keyboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And infinitely replicable because it's digital. I think maybe that's one of the aspects that takes away that humanity, is just because you can just take it then and put it anywhere. It's not something you made with, no one can just copy paste it. Like the remastered Star Wars. All of a sudden there's a do-back or something. I don't want to get that wrong. That might be right.
More do-backs in there.
More do-backs.
Dude, there's a scene in that, the one you're talking about, where George Lucas, for some reason, has one of those things walk so it blocks the entire frame for 3 seconds.
And it's just blatantly been added in post. Like it doesn't, the textures don't match with anything else in frame.
Yeah. It's terrible.
Looked bad.
Those are our normal versions of the original trilogy now, where he shoved all this crap into the frame that doesn't need to be there. Like some of the ways that they did the original, practical effects on Star Wars, like for instance, you remember the speeders?
Yeah.
So the way they did that was they had a mirror beneath the actual designed car, because the speeders had wheels and stuff, but they had a mirror underneath it at an angle so that it reflected the sand, so it looks like there's nothing there.
That's cool.
Yeah, and some of the ingenuity that they put into these projects is just insane.
That, and sometimes just as simple as what they did in The Lord of the Rings, of having Frodo in the background, Gandalf in the foreground, to make their heights, to make...
forced perspective, I think is what you're going for.
Yeah.
Forced perspective, they would shoot it, so he was in the back, Gandalf was in the front, and then they actually, on the cart scene at the beginning, what was really interesting is they had designed this one cart so that his seat was 3 feet lower and 6 feet back. So it was this bizarre looking contraption.
From the front angle shooting onto them, he looked miniature in comparison.
Exactly.
Yeah, good stuff. Done really well too.
Yeah. And then to get to the meat, the heart of the matter is practical effects for me, because I'm a horror movie nut, in practical effects with gore. I love it. For instance, the movie The Fly, which we can show you here in a second. The ending scene is one of my favorite scenes of all time, just because it's a David Cronenberg film, and he's known for his body horror.
Yeah. Trying to think, is the last scene when he fully transforms?
Yep.
Yeah, this one's disgusting. First he falls apart.
Oh yeah. It's you gotta love it, man. It's so cool.
Now, was that a dummy he was using that had obviously a ton of different parts and things going on it?
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of work that went into just this creature effect, I can't even imagine. I mean,
it doesn't even look practical, to be honest with
you. It's amazing. They literally built an animatronic. The eyes move, the creature's face, has...
How did, in that one part where its old face sheds and you see the new face, how did they get that to work? Maybe pulling with strings or something off the base, or did it actually, the animatronic, kick those chunks off of it? Because it looked really good. Yeah, it looked really good.
They're good at what they do. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. They built a face on a face, and
that comes off with goo between them.
And that stuff, if you compare that to a modern horror movie with CGI blood spurts and stuff, there's just no comparison,
Yeah. it's, I think the most egregious, as we were discussing before we started filming, the most egregious violations of this have been in the recent Marvel films.
Yeah.
Just some really what comes across as half-assed CGI. Garrett, intern, had mentioned that their staff has probably worked like slaves, so they probably don't have time to put that much effort into the whole thing.
Yeah.
But isn't that a product of them using so much CG throughout the film that it requires?
It's a couple different factors. I mean, one of the major factors is that, like you said, these guys are being worked to the bone. And these Marvel movies, most of them are, like they design the special effects first, and then like they design a story around it. Yeah. And then so they'll like start working on these effects, and then the people will be like, oh wait, something changed in the story, so we need you to scrap all that and redo it. And they're like, well, we just spent 90% of the time we had working on this, so now we've got 10% of the time to do something. It's gonna look like crap.
Yeah.
And and that's the thing, you couldn't do that with practical effects, and that's part of the charm of these older films, is that if you wanted to change something in the script, but you had a $2 million practical effect that you just had built, you can't throw that away.
Right.
So you got to work around it.
Yeah, and the idea that a lot of the practical effects were a one-shot deal. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure that example from The Fly, it was not a simple task to reassemble it. Like, you needed to get those shots right then and there, one chance, or you've wasted a lot of money and time and talent.
Absolutely.
So it's, that may be daunting, but I think that hones people in on what they're doing and to not mess it up. And
absolutely.
Makes people care more about what they're doing.
There's a pretty good example of practical effects done not only amazingly well, but in my opinion, showing that modern practical effects can be just as effective as CGI. In fact, more so. There's a film called The Void, which I believe you've seen. Oh, well, you watched it with me.
Yeah.
There's a scene where
the effects in that are really good.
Yeah. Where their creature is crawling down a hallway in a hospital.
It's like a man-horse dinosaur.
It's like a Lovecraftian creature. It was a nurse at one point. Now it's kind of a blob. But it's just the most grotesque looking creature. But it was all done practically, and I love it.
Wasn't it cheaper? Isn't this a relatively lower budget film?
I know, The Void? Yeah, The Void was a lower budget film, but as far as practical effects goes, generally they are cheaper than CGI. But again, it depends on what level you're going for.
Yeah.
And again, I think really when you're judging costs on something like that, it's, do you want to go for something that's going to look good and last for 50 years, or something that's going to look and last for like 5?
Right. Yeah. Because the CGI outpaces itself every couple years.
Yeah. Except with Marvel, which is going backwards.
It's somehow regressing.
Yeah, we were talking about that too. If you look at Iron Man from like 2009 compared to The Flash, it's no contest,
And somehow these films are exponentially more expensive to make. Mm-hmm. I don't really know where the money goes, but then again.
Have you seen the new Flash?
No, God, no.
Have you seen on Twitter anything about the Superman scene?
I saw people roasting the film and saying that it was not good, but no one was being very specific.
Okay, so the film itself, I didn't think it was, like, the story was all right.
Yeah.
But there's a scene where he's, like, running back in time, and you're seeing the events that happened in the Justice League movie. Yeah. And there's this scene of Superman, like, flying towards him, and no joke, dude, it looks like PlayStation 2 graphics. Like, it doesn't look like a human being. And I saw it in theaters, and I watched Superman flying at me on screen, and I'm like, what the hell is that? My mom leans over, and she's like, that doesn't look very And it's like, I know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Straight out of Jack and Daxter 1. Just some pixelated Superman.
Pretty much, yeah. And there's a perfect example of why CGI is terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
In not all cases, but I think you and I talked about it at some point that the best way to use CGI is in conjunction with practical.
Yeah. Use CGI to kind of supplement your practical.
Exactly.
And it'll probably be the best version you'll get.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can, I imagine, like 80 to 90% practical with 10 to 20% CGI just to fill little gaps or perfect things is going to look the best.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, and there's a lot of like creature features where they'll have a practical designed outfit, but then there'll be like certain parts of it that are, you know, designed for green screen.
Yeah.
So then that's a perfect example of combining the two to create something more, something greater than the sum of its parts, you know?
Like expressing damage being done to someone's outfit or armor, whatever they are. Sometimes, you know, it's, if you want multiple shoots, you don't want to destroy the thing.
Right.
You'll CGI it being damaged, which makes sense.
And that's the thing. I don't mind like minor CGI and like out of the way places, you know. You don't.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly a useful tool.
You know who Neil Blomkamp is, right?
Yeah.
You've seen District 9?
Yes, that's a good movie.
So he had a fascinating thing that he did with that film.
Are those aliens computer generated?
They are.
Okay.
But, and I was talking to Garrett about this not too long ago, I read this fascinating like mini documentary about it.
Yeah.
Basically, when that movie came out, he, you know, saw CGI it was a different world back then. CGI was put on a pedestal, right?
Yeah.
It is so expensive to create these like computer generated effects that movies were built around them. Like the CGI shots, they were like the god shots, you know? They're like probably like 20% of the overall budget of the film. So you plan those shots down to like, you know, within milliseconds and what you need to do. They're planned months in advance. And Neil Blomkamp, you know, he was like, I need to do something because I hate this. He hated the way that people put CGI on a pedestal. So what his goal with District 9 was to make CGI unimpressive, to make it like dirty and like crappy, so that you would look at it like this amazing thing, so that you would start like not paying attention to it, so it would be in the background. So the way he did that, do you remember District 9 was kind of like the first half was shot like a documentary?
Yeah.
So he did that and then added all these like little, I mean, all the aliens are CGI, but then there was like stuff in the background, all these little
Imagine
elements.
the ships are too.
Yep.
Yeah.
But he was like trash with CGI, like weird stuff. And
in like the alien refugee camps.
Yeah. And he was like, the aliens themselves, you know, you'd see them like out of focus in the background because he's like, I don't want you to pay attention to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But by doing that, he brings you into the world, because then you're not like, the story's happening and then like, oh, CGI, and then the story's happening.
Yeah.
You know, it's always, you're always surrounded by the CGI, and it gets like, it's just a mundane thing, you know?
Yeah.
But funny story, by doing that, he like nearly killed his editors, because there's a reason why you don't do CGI with documentaries, because most documentaries are shot with handheld.
Yeah.
And in order to do proper CGI, you have to have what's called plates, which is where you take on a nice little tripod. Yeah. You take your image of just like the background, and then you do the exact same shot, don't touch the camera, and you put whatever you want in the shot.
Yeah.
That way you have the shot with nothing in it, and then the shot with something in it, and then you can do whatever you want. But you can't do that with handheld because everything's moving.
Right. No static shots or very few.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So basically, in District 9, the animators had to frame by frame,
Brutal.
yeah, track every single shot to put the aliens in.
Oof.
And it added like 10 times the amount of work.
I bet.
Yeah.
It takes so long.
Dude, it was a fascinating documentary.
That's
it was pretty
interesting.
cool. Yeah. But there's an example of like CGI I can respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's certainly films that have done it well.
Mm-hmm.
It's never films that those elements are the focus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I feel like just like Inception, when they're in the dream and the world bends.
Yes.
It's great. It's a cool visual thing.
Practical effect though, a lot of it.
The city's a real thing, but when it moves, it's CGI, right?
Well, do you remember the scene where I forget his name? The guy, he's also Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yes.
He's like running and the world is like twisting.
Down the hallway.
Yep.
Yeah. That I know is
was practical.
I'm thinking of the city shot.
Okay, yeah, that's CGI.
That, and I think they did it well. It's only really used there, and I think a few other similar shots to that. And it's the one shot. It's high quality.
Mm-hmm.
It's honestly like it would have been really tough to do that practically.
Yep.
But then, as you said, that was only used relatively sparingly.
Christopher Nolan's a big fan of practical.
Yeah, you would think the hallway scene specifically, they would have been like, fuck that, we're not going to rotate a hallway. But they rotated a hallway with the actors inside of it, which is awesome.
They sure did. Yeah, speaking of Christopher Nolan, did you see his last big one about the guy who built the bomb, Oppenheimer?
Yes, yeah.
So I heard that was entirely practical. Do you remember?
I'm trying to think of what scenes
it was.
Other than the scene where he essentially imagines the fire bomb going off. I guess. Oh, there's tests too. Yeah. Okay. I'm remembering now. Yeah, that's cool because you wouldn't think so. There's some scenes where you're like, did they start a massive fire? Like,
that's interesting because like I said, I haven't seen the movie.
Okay.
So, do they show like nuclear explosions? Like, how do they do that?
A scene. It doesn't show the actual bomb like dropping on Japan, and they did that because Oppenheimer himself didn't witness that, and it's more about him and his perspective of the event. But when he's basically publicly declaring that his bombs got dropped, he kind of has like a mental break and kind of not hallucinates, but imagines that someone dropped his bomb on him in the room. I don't know if the room so much fills with fire, he kind of just like phases into a fiery place. I'm pretty sure I'm remembering this correctly. I could be wrong.
The people deteriorate too.
Yeah, and the people all burn up in front of him because he's kind of like imagining, oh shit, like what if we were the ones receiving this gift?
They also get the radiation like sickness stuff and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then the test scenes that's impressive that was practical because they're obviously miles away from where it goes off, but the wind and the whole, it's very atmospheric. They did a really good job.
So you're saying you thought it was CGI?
I would have assumed.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's really impressive.
It's a long movie, 3 hours. I'm trying to remember all the points.
Was it worth sitting through?
Yes, yeah. Especially the first half, I liked a lot.
Really?
But we can't really talk about practical effects without bringing up The Thing.
No, we can't.
Because they literally gave you an example of one that used all practical and one that used none.
Yep.
Nobody really remembers that second one.
I remember it. I actually liked the second one, but
I didn't dislike it. Yes.
I would have liked it a hell of a lot more if they kept the original practical effects, which, by the way, they made and then they had to scrap because producers are idiots.
Oh man.
$2 million they spent on legit practical effects. I actually played a clip of it in one of our TMS episodes. side-by-side comparison of the CGI versus the practical.
Yeah.
And dear God, can you notice the difference? I mean, the film was made in 2012, and the CGI already looks terrible. You know.
Yeah, it didn't look good. Yeah.
Yeah, but if we play a clip from the original thing, I mean, you can see, for instance, and this is interesting actually too, because if I remember correctly, this was the only scene in the original movie, the transformation of the dog, that was done by a different effects artist.
Oh.
The effects artist who worked on the rest of the film was like this, one of the most famous effects artists in the world. Did things that people like couldn't even picture being done. And I forget exactly the whole story, but there was a reason why he wasn't available. I think it was something like he had done the effects for this scene, and then they had gotten like ruined somehow, and he was in like another country and couldn't come back, so they had to redo it quickly and use someone else. But the person, I still say, did a great job. You know, they don't look quite the same as the rest of the movie, but they still look great, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that just by judging from the, you know, as a lay person or a semi-lay person.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's like when I spoke to Garrett and I mentioned that, he was like, you know, I did notice a slight difference between the dog scene and the rest of the movie. Because if like we play the head crab scene,
what would you say the main difference is between the two styles?
No, that's the dog scene. It's a good scene. Revisit that again.
Revisiting. I remember the head crab scene though.
Yeah. The head crab scene is awesome. I would say fluid motion is the main difference. Not that there isn't fluid motion in the dog scene, just that if you watch the head crab scene, and I don't even know how they do it, but like the motion of the head as it nope, that's the dog scene again. And it's a great scene. I love the dog scene.
We'll keep that on.
We're just gonna keep watching the dog scene. But yeah, no, there's a little bit more fluidity to the motion of the head.
Okay.
Nope, that's the fly. Also a great scene.
And that seems fluid. I see some fluids coming out.
There's definitely some fluids coming out. All the fluids.
Lots of them.
But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, that's the main difference.
Yeah,
I would say. Yeah.
I would say. And again, two different effects artists. Nope. Oh, we're going one more try. Oh, hey, head crab! Look at that.
Yeah. See, head crab doesn't even look practical. Like the face does, but the movements of its body.
Yeah. I mean, just like, and you got to think, this head was entirely.
See, that looks CGI. That neck.
Nope, that's what I'm saying, man. This entire thing was created with animatronics in 1984.
Yeah,
like,
fine.
it's just insane. I mean, look at how good those prosthetics look. You know what I'm saying? It's, and do you see what I mean by fluidity?
Yeah.
You know, like especially once it's on the ground, like it just the way it's animated is slightly more, and that might be because animating an animal might be a little more difficult than animating a human.
Yeah. If they had a real dog that they had originally, you know, obviously partway through the scene, you got to pull the real dog out and put in a fake dog body.
Right.
Animals are jerky moving a lot of the time.
Yeah. But anyways, I think we've given some pretty good examples of practical versus CGI. You have any final thoughts?
I think it would be wise for the industry to move back in the direction of using majority practical. It seems like you end up with a better final product. It seems like it's cheaper, and it has less dictation over your storyline. Whereas like CGI is so expensive, they have to kind of budget it in before they even make the movie and start it before they even have a final script.
Yep.
In which case, then you get, what's the one scene from the Marvel movie everyone uses as that example from the Hulk where the face is floating in a bedroom and it just looks horrible?
Oh no, you're thinking of Thor. Love and Thunder.
Thor.
Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah.
Marvel.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And creativity and ingenuity from problems. Creative solutions to problems is how you get amazing work. And if you can just do anything you want in a computer, then you lose a lot of that.
It also kind of enables you to do a half-ass job.
Yep.
Whereas you can't really half-ass practical effects without it just not even being close to what you want.
Right, exactly.
So, and I feel like people who work with their hands on things are happier people than people who work behind a computer all the time. Like me.
I work with my hands. I'm very happy.
Oh boy.
And with that, thanks for watching us. And
like and subscribe for more arts and science videos.
And remember, the dog scene. It's a great scene. You should watch it.
Watch all movies we referenced except for Marvel.